Hey, what's up guys? This is MJ100K and today I'm going to go over how I did the wainscoting with mosaic tile accent in my bathroom. It actually took forever and I just got finished, so I'm going to share how I did it. If you don't know, I used to be a mechanic and now I'm a contractor, and I've been doing it for about a year and a half. This is a bathroom, locker room that we redid in this fancy how do you call it, country club or health club or whatever. And I saw it there and I just had to have it in my house for some reason. So I'm going to go over how I did it. I'm not perfect. I'm like, I would consider myself an intermediate level carpenter. So the results are pretty good, and I'm going to show you how you can do some really nice and fancy stuff in your house too. So here we go. Made a line that was as high as the 4x8 boards I'm going to use. What you want to do is go ahead and cut the drywall at this line, because the 4x8 sheets are going to be connected directly to the studs. So yeah, made a little square and then you pull it off. Here we go. So that's not too hard. Get rid of all the nails and screws once you pull that off. Then I noticed that I would need a scab or a nailer, and I also noticed I was going to need to put some nails in there. So yeah, so you want to cut yourself a little piece of 2x4 just so you have something to attach your sheets to. Here we go. What I used was 3-inch deck screws. Oh yeah, so here I put in some drywall screws to hold that drywall down. I just cut a piece out here. I'm gonna put that piece back because I didn't feel like getting another piece of drywall at the store that day. So here we go. Pull that out gently. Here we go. And then yeah, I don't know why they put 2 layers of drywall here when they built my house, but whatever. I just gonna put it back. Alright, so I used a countersink so that way when you fill it in it won't leave a mark. And 3-inch deck screws. So here I'm using a countersink here, and I use a clamp to hold it. Drill in the deck screws, and boom, now you got yourself a nailer. You can't let like these long sheets, they have to be attached at the top and bottom, front and back. You can't just have them dangling. So here we go. Yep, nice and sturdy. La-di-da-di. So now our sheets could go on and they'll be nice and strong. So I'll put that piece of drywall back. So here we go. Boom, nice and strong. See, those holes will be filled in later. Put everything back. So here you could use MDF. I don't really like MDF as much as the wood. I think the wood paints up better, but the MDF is cheaper and it's a little taller. But yeah, so you just have to make some measurements to where you're going to be cutting out for behind the toilet. So see, this is actual speed here, people. I am super fast. This video is actually, the whole thing is actual speed. It only took me about 20 minutes to do this whole job. So alright, here we go. So you put the 4x8 sheet in. This is like a finished, they call it blonde board at my job, but here we go. Yeah, put that in. So now you got all your screws in. Alright, starting to look like something. So here you gotta make sure to measure these pretty accurately. I like to use drill to drill out all 4 sides, and then I just will jigsaw the rest out. And then you gotta, there we go. So yeah, put these on. Be careful if you don't know what you're doing. You want to turn the relays off or get an electrician to do this part for you. So here we go. These fuzzies, you got to get rid of all these fuzzies. Okay, there's no fuzzies allowed. At my job, if they find one fuzzy, you get sent home for 2 weeks. And they won't let you work anywhere else. You just have to not make any money. So here you go. No more fuzzies. And then we're gonna fill it in with some of this stuff. You can use the 5X or the 3X. It doesn't matter. The 5X is all I had in my box. So here we go. I'll fill that in. And then you got to do that with every single screw. So that is lots of fun. Then once it dries, go ahead and sand it down so everything is nice and smooth. These little fine details are where you want to spend most of your time, making sure that everything is smooth and no fuzzies. Everything is nice and sanded down, because when you paint it, that's when you don't want to see all these screw fills. Alright, so let's take a break. I went for a nice jog and saw this beautiful sunset, so I thought I'd take a video of it. Very nice. I love living in the country. I used to live in the city, but I love the country now. So I figured I'd use this mold. I didn't have to get mold killing paint, but that's all they had. They do just have a mold blocker. But anyway, I figured it was mostly the same. So here's the first coat. I needed to make an access panel for this. Well, I didn't have to, but I like to always be able to access everything. Because when I was a mechanic, I would always think, well, what if when this breaks, is it hard to work on? So I always like to use access panels now. And then I use these to, they will lift out the outlets so that they'll be in plane with the material, the 1x material. I like this screwdriver. I use it for those electrical screws. I should do a video on it one day. It's an awesome screwdriver. So here we go. Yeah, you want to mark that. You could use it, the box, to mark it up. And then I'll use the same technique. Just put in 4 screw holes and then jigsaw it out. Make you a nice little square. Then I put that behind the square. Then I use a finishing nailer to nail it in. Make sure you don't hit the electrical lines or you will blow up your entire house and your neighborhood. You don't want that. So here we go. This is all 1x4 pre-primed pine. You nail it all in. And then I use my little digital tape measure to get the length. Here we go. Alright, so at the bottom here, this is important. That first little piece, that's a 1x2, and that is PVC. So I want it, because PVC doesn't rot like wood will. So at the bottom, the baseboard I use is PVC, and that first little strip is PVC. And then it's 1x6 at the bottom. But at the top, I use 1x4. And these are all 1x4. This is pre-primed pine. I put those shims in there so they'll be in the same plane as that other piece. Here we go. So yeah, at the bottom, that's 1x6. The 1x6 is pre-primed pine. You could do it all in PVC, the whole thing, but PVC is pretty expensive. So I just use it at the bottom. And yeah, see, it's all starting to come together. So you gotta putty these nail holes You use painter's putty. At my job, they taught me this technique. Use painter's putty, and that is quick drying drywall mud. They call it like 20-minute mud. And then you put a little bit, you roll your little putty ball in there a little bit. This helps the putty not to fall down once it's in there. It stiffens it up a little bit, which is good. So you don't have to redo any holes. Alright, get out every single fuzzy. This is serious. Because the paint will show these little fuzzies. So if you see a fuzzy, you must destroy it immediately. One time I left a fuzzy in at work and I wasn't allowed to eat lunch for 3 weeks. So here we go. Sand down all those little things where they connect. You want everything to be in the same plane as close as possible. You could sand it with a cordless sander too if you want. And you get your put it in all these little gaps. I put a little bit too much in one of them, but yeah, you only want a little bit. Then I got this at a lumber yard, so they don't have this at Lowe's. This is too much baller status for Lowe's. So, but it was a little bit of a weird gap there, so I decided to put a little piece of PVC in there. And then you can nail it together with a little 3/4 inch brads, just so they'll just barely get in there from the bottom, so the nails won't stick out the top. Then I use the DA to nail it into the top. And I have all these shims in here because it was a little wobbly. So once you put enough shims in there and level it, it's pretty sturdy. See, you could even put stuff on there. It's pretty sturdy. I mean, I wouldn't do pull-ups off of it, but you could put little stuff on there. Then you got some wood glue to put this together. This part was kind of a pain in the butt. But if you keep trying, you'll get it eventually. So there we go. I wanted everything to be pretty level. I should have got a longer piece of stool, I think they call that. But I forgot how long my wall was, and I had them cut it at 8 feet. I wish I just had them leave it at 12 feet, then I could have cut it. I wouldn't have had to make that joint. So anyway, yeah, you can use this patch. The 3X or the 5X is fine. So you want to patch all that behind where the stool meets the wall. And you want to start cutting your... This is a little trick they showed me at work. You just line it up. You could measure it like that. And then when you put it on the miter saw, you could just kind of sneak up on that line. You don't have to get it right with one cut. Just kind of sneak up a little further and then keep going closer to it's perfect. So yeah, so then we want to put these, this part, I think they call it panel trim, in there. Alright, so then I used a brad gun to shoot it all in there. If the gaps are a little bit off, you could use some shims, and then you could cut them off with a oscillating tool or a knife. Then anything that doesn't join up perfectly, you could sand it down a little bit. And then we're gonna putty all the holes again and caulk all these little lines. Yep, that's the caulk. Paintable silicone. Very nice caulk right there. So yeah, anywhere you see where you need to caulk in these little spaces, you want to get a bead of caulk in there so when you paint it, it'll look nice. In there, see all those little spaces. And I use Dutch Boy paint from Menards. You got the paint and primer. Alright, so before you paint though, you want to sand everything down with a little superfine scrubby so the paint will adhere very nicely. Don't rush through this part. And get everything nice and smooth. Oh, here's the first coat. Looking good. Now we're starting to look like something. We're starting to get there. Oh, and here is the second coat. Oh my goodness. The fancy level is rising. We are almost at a fancy level of 8 out of 10. Alright, so here we go. The tile. This is the part where I think really makes mine stand out. I saw a couple people do this on the internet, but I decided to take the extra time and do it, and I think it turned out great. You'll see at the end. You'll see how awesome it's going to look, but we got to finish. Okay. So here we go. You could go ahead and mark it. Boom. Then you take it over. Use your speed square. All my tools have my initials on them because at work I use my own tools. I don't want them to get mixed up with the work tools. So here we go. Make sure to put water in your wet dry towel or your wet towel saw, and use your earmuffs if you got them. I copied this the same towel saw my boss has at work, so I wanted to get the same one because it's like industrial strength, contractor grade. If you don't have one of these, you could probably rent one. I think Home Depot rents stuff like this. But yeah, here we go. Nice and straight. And then you'll match it up. Very nice. I used a pre-mixed mortar just because it's a little easier, and a 3/16 V-notch trowel. I'm usually a little better. I'm trying to hold the camera and do this at the same time. But just get it on there as uniform as you can. Try not to make a mess like I did. There we go. So, you want to use the white mortar because it'll show through the mosaic tile a little bit. There we go. Hit every spot so that our tile will stick on there pretty good. Alright. Nice and smooth there. You really want to take your time because once it's up there, it ain't coming out easily. So here we go, not too shabby. You just kind of stick them on there. Just make sure it's in there all the way. See, this is where I messed up. If you look closely, this gap at the bottom is way too big. Like, I didn't think it was going to make a difference, but it did. But I will show you what happens, or what I decided to do to make up for that error I just made. It should be about 1/8 at the top and bottom and the sides. So I measured it a little bit wrong, but I will pull greatness from the jaws of defeat. Alright, yeah, so you can use the sealer too. Here we go. So this is the grout, and that's a grout float. Just kind of smush it all in there. Smush is the technical term. Here we go. Smush away. Just make sure it's all smushed in, or you'll have to re-smush. You don't want to have to re-smush, or you'll have to start over from the beginning. Alright, here we go. Get a little wetness there. Alright. Where's my sponge? Here's the sponge. Better to use a sponge. It's harder for me to do this because I'm holding the camera. I really should have used my camera stand, but... Alright, here we go. Now once this dries, you'll be able to wipe off some of the dust. See, here's where I messed up. The gap is too big, even though I used the grout in the yeah, see, it's too long. It falls down. So, but I had an idea. I said, let's try this glass bead from Menards PVC, and I feel like it increased the fanciness level by at least 15 to 20%. Alright, I didn't know if it was going to work, but it did. Oh my goodness. And it's even more fancy. Alright, but it's going to take longer. But you have to earn your fanciness here, people. And I shot it in with those little tiny brads, those 3/4. Make sure not to hit the mosaic tile. So yeah, so you got to caulk all those holes again. Oh, not caulk. You got to putty all the holes and then caulk the seams. And then paint it. The PVC paints a little bit differently. It doesn't really paint as good as the pre-prime pine, but it's okay. I mean, nobody really noticed that much. It's a slightly different white, but nobody noticed. See, here it is. The fanciness is here. This may be one of the best wainscot boards I've seen on the internet. Look at this. I mean, I hate to pat myself on the back, but oh my gosh, it looks so good. I showed all my friends at work and they're like, wow. And they see this kind of fancy stuff like every day, and even they said, wow. So I am super happy. This whole job costs maybe, well, not job, but this whole project costs about maybe $600 or $700. But I think it's totally worth it. The bathroom is the room of the house that will sell it. Look, and you could just store stuff up there too, so it's good for smaller bathrooms. But yeah, bathrooms and kitchens sell houses. So if I ever sell my house, which I probably will, who knows, I think it'll sell so fast. See, let's get a close-up. Let's get a close-up of this greatness. You are in the presence of one of the best wainscot boards in history of the planet. So you could do it too, though, and then everybody will say how fancy you are. And just tell them MJ100K showed me how to be fancy. Thank you for tuning in and have a good one.